Hello, today we're going to be speaking to Ross Balharry, founder of Bedrock Buildings, specialising in round timber construction, including Canadian log-style scribe log homes and post and beam framing. Ross holds a first-class degree in structural engineering from Heriot-Watt University and has transitioned into hands-on traditional building craft, combining technical knowledge with practical skills. His company focuses on sustainable building using natural materials and heritage techniques. So really hope you enjoy today's episode with Ross. So welcome everybody today. I'm going to welcome Ross Balharry, founder of Bedrock Buildings, specialising in round timber construction, including Canadian style scribe log homes and post and beam framing. Ross holds a first-class degree in structural engineering from Heriot-Watt University and has transitioned into hands-on traditional building craft, combining technical knowledge with practical skills. His company focuses on sustainable building using natural materials and heritage techniques. So, Ross, absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Vincent. Yeah, that was quite a very nice intro. It's weird hearing yourself or somebody describing it. So thank you.
Brilliant. So, you're very welcome, and thanks so much for your time today. How did it all start for you?
Tricky to know when it started, but as a kid, I liked building stuff, right? Lots of my childhood memories are running around the woods, building dens with my brother, that kind of thing. Being outdoors was always something that I wanted, and hands-on, getting your hands dirty, your fingers, whatever. And then that just progresses in terms of like when you're at school, you've got your design courses or your craft and design, whatever it is, practical skills. And because I've had a childhood doing that stuff, you tend to be good at it. And if you're good at it, or it comes easy to you, then I think you want to do more of it. So those were the subjects that I just really enjoyed them. They were easier for me. And then I was pushed a bit to go to uni. That was seen as like something I should do. And I didn't get quite enough hires. So I ended up working my 6th year with my uncle's Tim Meek Associates. There was a lot of lime restoration, bit of post and beaming, that sort of thing, and just really enjoyed that. And then got into Heriot-Watt, did my structural engineering. Really enjoyed all of the problems that they give you, and they do when they're teaching you stuff. They give you all the juicy, nice, interesting stuff, and it was great. It was really good, but you've also got to get some like hands-on work experience of what it's like to be a structural engineer, and I didn't enjoy those summer placements. I got one down in New Zealand. We were looking at like council-owned buildings and reassessing them after the Christchurch earthquakes, and it was great. Like that concept of taking some buildings, pulling them with lorries, seeing how they behaved, seeing why the standards are saying that those buildings should have come down, but they didn't, and why was that? And lots of sheeting materials having contributed towards their structural strength that hadn't been taken into consideration. Things like cladding and plasterboard and all that. It's structural, like capacity or the help that it gave the building with all of the fixtures flexing and taking out some of that forces, but allowing a bit of damage, but it's all kind of superficial damage. Anyway, that bit, really interesting. But once you got through that bit and you're on to what's the quickest way to now get through the next 100, 200 buildings, and you're writing your Excel spreadsheet and you're just like one building after the next, trying to get them done and not getting to see that structural design being implemented and not even knowing if it happens. Not, just like, yes, this one will need one of the 3 upgrades, or no, this one will be fine, and just kept going. And I found that really disappointing, disheartening, and soul destroying. And then that was combined with, I got ill when I was out in New Zealand. I had basically a flu, which then turned into lymphoma. And then as a result of that, they found out I had a heart problem. So I had this really stressful, intense period where it went from your structural engineering student, everything's looking like it's going quite well for you in terms of that, like follow the standard path, to actually 6 months lying on your back, feeling really sick, just wishing that you'd spent more time outside running around type thing. Totally changed my outlook. And I was really fortunate, right? Lymphoma is 100% curable, and I was in really good care the whole time. And that helps massively for your mindset, because you're like worried because the whole, I don't know, it's a scary time and still relatively young, but it wasn't you're surrounded by people that are saying you're going to be fine. It's just going to be a bit of time where this sucks, but it's okay. We know how to fix this. Anyway, I come out of that and I finished my studies. I had a year out in Canada, doing like an international part of the degree, which again was interesting, but big, heavy on the concrete stuff. I'd kind of hoped naively that because I was going to Canada, there'd be lots of structural engineering on log buildings and stuff, but that didn't happen. I was in Calgary and it was very concrete and steel heavy. And then I went traveling for 2 years, trying to work out what it was I wanted to do with myself. And when I came back from that, it was like, come on, Ross, you got to grow up now. You got to become an adult and get a proper job and all that. And I didn't know what to do, but I wanted to do something I enjoyed doing. And I was really reluctant now to head into that sort of corporate world, follow the standard path of becoming a structural engineer. I was done with that kind of thing. I really wanted to use my hands. I'd enjoyed my time traveling, been teaching kids, lots of like whitewater kayaking, climbing stuff, building. And I wanted to see if I could do that. And then the neighbour basically asked us if I could maybe think about building her a carport, and there was some odd framing jobs coming up, and people just inquiring about, Ross, what are you going to do? Could you do this for me? And then you start taking it on.
And you were back in the UK at this time?
Sorry, I've come back to the UK now.
Yeah.
And at some point in there, it was like, you know what, just try, make a go of it, because if you don't, you're going to regret not having tried. So started Bedrock Buildings as a company, and finished off that carport for the neighbour, which was it's a round log post and beam frame building, where I was working with a guy, Cormac Seekings, and he's a real artisan type. He's just like, there is no problem. There's always multiple solutions type character. Really, really good to work with. Anyway, this carport became like a demonstration of lots of different types of joints that you could do, or ways to use bendy bits of timber. So we try and find, rather than taking a straight piece of timber and cutting a curve in it, we're trying to find a curve that's going to match that shape. And sometimes you're turning them upside down, sometimes you're not. Sometimes it's a curved piece of larch that comes out of you've got a tree, the crown's broken off when it was quite young, and it splits, and it's got these multiple leaders that come out, and they can make absolutely beautiful braces. But depending on those shapes, kind of depends on the type of joinery that it's going to lend itself to. If it's really swept, if it's really curved, where it meets the post and the beam, it's like almost running parallel. So things like tenons and mortises don't really work anymore, because the wood fibre, it's not actually going into that, it's like running along next to it. So you're maybe talking about like squinted abutments and some sort of fish tenons going in there. Sorry,
No. So I was interested, that neighbour's carport, did they specify that it had to be in roundwood?
No, they'd got a quote from like a firm in Inverness, because they'd said that they wanted a carport, and that firm had come back with this sort of like steel cantilevered thing, and the stuff that we'd been doing elsewhere. And she was just like, could you not make me something that's a lot nicer? Because they're asking, I feel, is an awful lot of money for something that's, it didn't speak to her and what she wanted. So we came up, the idea is the company's a design and build company. So we use SketchUp and we draw out whatever it is and send them their pictures, or we can show our clients like a wee 3D model. So we did that, and she was just, yeah, that's fantastic, absolutely, let's go for that. So it kind of, she'd seen what we've been doing at our own place and elsewhere. So she
Right, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So I wonder how. And then when you formed Bedrock, did you partner up, or was it just you?
No, it's just me.
But you were working with. So sorry, who was the chap that you said that you were working with?
Yeah, Cormac.
Yeah. Cormac. Yeah.
So yeah, so he doesn't own Bedrock or any shares in Bedrock, and depending on what project we've got on, he's got a more or less of a role, but it's more of a advisory type, consultancy type support that Cormac gives me at the moment.
And this was your first build, wasn't it? This is the first time, or you said you'd done some bits at home.
Yeah, so we've done like one of the placements I got when I was still studying was trying to get a structural engineering work. I think it was with Mott MacDonald, but anyway, I can't remember. It was some firm in Inverness, and one of their clients had come in, seen my CV on their desk, and then had said, "Do you have anything for that kid?" To which the structural engineer said, "No, not this year." And he then said, "Well, I've got work. I'll give him something." And the reason he was interested in my CV was because I'd put a picture of a log cabin on it. The reason I put a picture of a log cabin on it, when me and my wee brother were, like, Ryan must have been 13, I was 14, something like that. Our parents had bought us a lorry load of timber, like a lorry load of larch logs, and basically a book called, from Robert Chambers on how to build a log cabin. And that was
no way. Your parents bought, hold on, let's backtrack. Your parents bought you.
Yeah. No.
So not a Nintendo. It was a lorry full of logs.
Right, I know, but that's what I mean about my childhood was very much hands-on outside. Yeah, we did actually have a Wii after begging our parents for ages, because everyone else had a games console or something.
Yeah.
But even when we got it, we didn't use it because we were so privileged to have. I mean, we stay in Glenafric, so our garden was big, but then it goes on to the nature reserve, and we would be away for days, and our parents wouldn't really mind. We'd just take the tents out, and we were going to go fishing in the hills, and we'd come back, the idea of your parents buying you a lorry load of logs and then saying, "Look, here, we'll help you build," what at the time's a kid is like a fantastic den, but you're still kind of thinking it's just a progression from this, previous dens and things you've been building in the woods, and now your parents are helping you out. Didn't seem like that out there a concept. Whereas when I went to uni and you tell people that,
yeah.
What? Like, where have you grown up, you weirdo?
That's amazing.
It was brilliant and super empowering. See, at 14, being told that you're allowed to use a chainsaw and being shown how to use it. Yeah, you're terrified of it, but shown how it's awesome. And then that it really is empowering, and it teaches you that, I don't know, like, just to have a go, but to treat things with respect. But like, if you're respectful, then you can participate, you can have a go, you can, engage with it. So that was awesome. Yeah. Really, really awesome. But sorry, I've gone off on a tangent there. The reason
that was very, very important to go back to that point. That was so that's a key bit of info there. Yeah.
So I've got this picture of this log cabin on my CV, trying to make myself stand out from the crowd. But this guy that's come in, he's a log builder, and he's looking for advice from a structural engineer, and he sees it. So he looks at it and goes, "Aha, that kid, I could get him working up on this project. So then, I don't know, I was being a student one night and I get a phone call, and it's this guy, Henry Frostbrook, and he's called me up and he's looking for help on a barn project up in Ascent for the Ascent Foundation. So I laboured. I mean, I wasn't, other than the fact I'd done this log cabin and I knew the concept. I mean, that cabin was done by 14-year-olds who hadn't used chainsaws before. It's pretty rough and ready, you know. But it was a good first attempt, no doubt. I'll stay in it, so it's not that bad. So I went up there and I laboured. It was a big log barn project. And that was really interesting. That was my first intro to using round logs as like framing. So I'd done square post and beam framing before that, when I had my my year out working with Tim Meek Associates. And then it's the same kind of thing, but everything has to be referenced from a centre line because you don't have a flat base to work from. That was good. That was really interesting. Then back to uni, finished my uni stuff. And then I think it was before I went travelling, there's somebody else locally wanted a small cabin similar to the one that we'd made, that sort of size, a 5 by 4 metre dual pitch turf roof. So I set about making that one somewhere, and that was great fun. They had the trees on their ground, so that was felling the trees, peeling them, prepping them, turning them into this log cabin, and then there was somebody locally with what was it called? A forwarder. So they then picked up, because it's right on the edge of a gorgeous cabin. So they then positioned their machine and picked up the logs and would just like move them over and drop them all into place for us, like this great big mechanical set just grows. I mean, it's awesome. When you come to putting a log cabin together, as in you're not building it in situ, you built it just off to the side or wherever it is, and then you go to put it all together, it's great. I mean, that's a good few days where this house just seems to appear out of nothing. It's great fun.
Amazing. And so that's what gave you when your neighbour said about the pork cart and wanted something a bit more interesting, you already had that vision, what you could build.
Yeah. But at that time, it wasn't for a business setting. It was because I knew I could do it and somebody was willing to pay me to do it, and I didn't really know what else to do. You know, it wasn't, not that matters, but it was a very different mindset. Whereas when I then took on, we're doing a house now, and when you take on to design a house and you're thinking about it in terms of a business, it's about, or not always, but like the way I've been approaching it is, it's using traditional building techniques, round heavy timber construction, but it's got to meet building standards. And how can we do this better? And part of that better is more efficiently, so that you can get that cost down. I think there's a bit of a thing about log buildings. You could have an awful lot of money if you want a log building, and it's kind of true. They are expensive because they're labouring, which is probably the same for all heritage building styles, right? And we're losing a lot of that labour too. So it's not easy. I can go and find a joiner that wants to work with me, but it's quite tricky to find a log builder that wants to work with me because there isn't something that goes out there. Sorry, I've lost what I was rambling on about now.
Well, I was going to take you back a little bit. That project that you did for your neighbour, you completed that. Was that successful? Happy with it? And then did it give you sort of inspiration of thinking, right, what could I do next?
Yeah, no, definitely. Sorry, absolutely. It was successful because the client, our neighbour, really loved it. I mean, she was like over the moon, delighted with it. But without blowing my own trumpet too much, it's beautiful. It's really nice. And people wanted to come see it. So whether it was her, as in the neighbour's friends, that would come up and then they'd want to come see me to say how much they really like this building, or it's the postie or an Amazon delivery driver or whoever it is. And the thing I really liked is that everybody wanted to engage with the structure, as in you look at it and you go, yeah, that's really nice. Curves, braces, turf roof. It's beautiful. But people want to go into it and then they want to touch the joinery, or they want to stroke the curved braces. And you don't do that with a bar at home or whatever. Something really engaging about the natural forms, natural materials, colors, all that stuff. So yeah, it kind of, I don't know, it was successful. Client was happy. I felt good about it and was getting like reassurance that, yeah, you can do this, Ross. You're like, maybe there is something there. But also,
did it cost you money? Did it cost you money, that first one?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that was inevitable.
It cost me money. It cost quite a bit too. And it was one of those ones where you can't really go back to the client and say, oh, it's going to cost a bit more, because they'd be going, why is it cost more? And if I was honest, it cost more because rather than standardizing the brace connection that we were going to do, we thought, this would look really nice, or we could maybe we could do something different here. And it just didn't feel fair, you know.
You couldn't really go back to them and say, well, it's going to cost more because of my own satisfaction. Is that okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's like, I'm delighted we did it. I mean, it's awesome. It's really nice. And it's a good showpiece for us. So that's nice.
Yeah, of course. And then, so once you did that, and obviously clients delighted, you overrun because you're passionate, you're a craftsman, and it's very difficult to be aware of the commercial aspect when you're an artisan, because you're enjoying so much what you're doing. It's a labor of love. But when you got to the end of that project, then you thought, okay, well, we didn't make any money out of that. How could we then take that product and actually turn it into a business? Was there a moment where you thought that?
Yeah, but it's not coming from a like, oh, if I'd done this differently, we'd have made so much money on that. It's more like, I really enjoyed that.
Yep.
Could I get that to pay?
Yes.
Like, could I do that again where I didn't lose money and I could pay myself something and it was okay? And it was coming from that sort of space. And that's what led me. So another one of the frustrations doing that project was that we were doing it underneath a tarpaulin, which was suspended between a pine tree and a birch tree at the other end. And you get this great big tent set up over our yard with like a rope line between the two. And then it would snow, and the rope line would stretch, and the snow would blow in, and your tools would get wet. And you're talking about, I mean, nobody wants their tools getting wet, but when you've got really sharp, polished chisels and things, and they start going rusty on you because it's just a real sink.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating. Then you're worried about the tarp completely collapsing. So every time it snows, you have to go out and shake it off. Because it's under this tent, your lifting ability basically meant that it was all by hand or on chain hoists, you know, and with tripods set up. And all that stuff it's fine. Like, it's a lot, or it could be a lot more capital intensive or expensive, which is kind of the route we ended up going down. It was just frustrating, you know, like, imagine if you've got to, it would be easier for me to mark this out if I could just shift it over there. I can't really shift it over there by myself without feeling like I need a lunch break after it. So I need to come up and give me a hand. So then you're calling around the village, you find someone who's going to come up, give you a hand, shift it over. You kind of just, I could probably just mark it there though. Probably be okay. And there's all that like frustrations, or it slows you down because you now know you're not doing it the best way. You're kind of doing it to make it work because you can't lift the log over. And so that then leads us on to when I like made the decision that we were going to be a business or actually have a go at this. Lifting, getting something that was mechanical lifting was really important. And up until that point, it had been like the back actor on a 3CX JCB, or borrowing someone's excavator, or getting them in with their HIAB, whatever it is, to do the bits where you knew you were going to have a lot of lifting all in quick succession, like the cabin on the edge of the gorge there. You get the machine in and it shifts it over from where you've been building it to where it's going to go. I needed something that was going to be, we were going to use all the time, just to take out that backbreaking work of trying to spin logs, whatever. And I wanted somewhere dry, somewhere that I knew my tools were going to be safe and that I could work. Like, you know, basically so that you could take someone on to employ them and you knew that they could continue working, even if it was a really wet minging day or if the snow was down. So then we looked for funding, and that's when we got the dose of help from HIE. And we've now got...
What's that?
Islands and Islands Entrepreneurs, something like that.
Okay.
Butchered that, actually, I'm not sure now. But it's a body that helps businesses start up with funding. So the way it worked was that you write them your business case, and if approved, you have to get match funding and be able to demonstrate that. So I think our grant was 50%. So we were going to have to pay for 50% of this build, and HIE was going to pay the other 50%. But you also have to have enough capital to be able to fund all of it, because HIE doesn't give it to you up front. So you need a short-term loan for the other 50% to get back.
Right.
And again, that was up against the wire. HIE actually called me and said, look, we really like your idea, but we just don't think there's enough time. You haven't been able to demonstrate that you've got the match funding yet. And are basically at their funding lapses at the end of the year. And, you know, we'd like to give it to somebody else, but you should apply next year if the grant's available. So I was like, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Because I've applied for so many different funding opportunities up to this point, and writing isn't my strong suit. So I can't actually believe that I've managed to convince someone and get in there. Anyway, I begged them, and they said, okay, you can have another week. So I managed to get the match funding, and this is coming up in the lead up to Christmas. And over the Christmas break, all the construction industry stops, closes down. And I know I have to get my foundations in before that period. So it was like right up to the wire. Anyway, we managed it. We got our foundations in, and you said, yeah, this is going to happen. And then steel portal frame shed goes in early in the spring. And it's maybe not 100% as you would, it's not perfection workshop, but it gives us a huge area that is dry, covered, and it's got a gantry crane that goes backwards and forwards in it. So we've got a 5-ton anywhere on that floor area. And that is...
And yeah, sorry to interrupt. And I'm presuming at this point you had a good business model of how you could make money, how you can make it commercially viable.
Yeah, well,
sort of.
That one through. Well, the thing so yeah, absolutely. I'd looked at that carport project and I'd gone, we lost a lot of time in the lifting.
Yeah.
And we lost a lot of time with the frustrations to do with not being dry. And if I look around the Highlands of Scotland, there's a few log builders actually, but there's no log building companies. There's 2 other log building outfits in the UK. There's one in Wales, I think, North Wales, and then there's one down in the borders, British Log Cabins and Caledonian Log Homes. And they would be able to give you a price for a 2-bed log home. But that was the market that I always wanted to be in. But if you look around the Highlands of Scotland, there's a lot of one-man band log builders that are artisan types. They're really skilled, but they're not necessarily willing to take on and deliver a big building like that. What they'd really like is for you to come to them and say, look, I'd like a hand helping me build something. So then they come along with whatever tools it is that they have, and they help teach you, and you work together to get this done. But without there being a timeline or necessarily a fixed budget. And I couldn't see that working for the majority of folk, or at least not enough to make a business plan out of it. So I think I'd seen that if you could build a log cabin and it was comparable in price with a custom built home from likes of a Carbon Dynamic or Makar or who else have we got up here? I don't know. But like these, so you're not trying to compete at the budget end of the house market, but you're talking about eco-built, well-built, to modern building standards. And I just looked at what's their price per meter square. I went, can we do that? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, no doubt about it. We can definitely compete in that space.
That's incredible, because you had something to then work off, didn't you? You had those figures. You're thinking, like, could we build it for that? Yeah, that's.
It just felt right. If I'm being really honest, the thing I overlooked is the staff. So I've got one full-time employee now, Alex, and he's brilliant. But he's taken a year and a half, 2 years to get to where he is. And the big thing he keeps saying is that it's very different to all his previous work, construction work. Because usually when you're doing staff at the start of the project, it's all covered up. If you're a joiner and you're knocking out your frames, it's going to get sheeted over with plasterboard. And then even that's not going to be seen, because that's going to get plastered or painted or skimmed, whatever. So you can make mistakes and it's like, it's not great, because the next guy is going to have to like cover that up, to neaten that up, whatever. But it's all relatively easy to fix. Whereas if you're draw knife in the log, and the wood fibers, they have how do you describe it? Well, they're all like straws, and they run along the timber. And if my fingers were the straws and you grabbed them with the blade this way, pulled them, they tend to like rip out and tear. Whereas if you're coming in this direction, you don't catch the ends of them, so you get a nice smooth finish. Well, you want a nice smooth finish on your finished log, and there you are, you're draw knifing away, you're making it all nice and pretty. If you catch it wrong and you pull out a great big bit, well, that's tough, because that's your finished log. So you're going to see that. No one's coming along to hide that, unless you're fortunate enough that it ends up being behind a kitchen counter or something. So there's a bit of, and that's all the way through the process. So you have to be really on it with, and take pride in what it is you're doing every step of the way. You can't just go into like autopilot and just knock it up so much, maybe. Certainly that was one of his comments anyway. But I took on 3 folk to start with, and it was just too much. And that's probably just being a little bit young and naive. And I've got no training in training folk up or in business. And I knew that I could do it. And then maybe if I'm honest, getting a bit frustrated with why other people aren't picking it up, because I think it's easy. But then also having to just like step back and go, probably that's because you're not explaining it very well, though, Ross. And that would be very true. I'm getting my words muddled all the time. So you've got to work out what it is I'm trying to do. I'm being really precise. Anyway, what happened was I had to say to 2 of them, like, "Oh, guys, I'm sorry, but right now it's just too much. I can't." And I kept on Alex, and it's brilliant. And we're now at a place where we're going to be taking on someone else, and hopefully have an apprenticeship starting this year. So that's great, but just it needs to be a little bit slower and steady. And I guess what I was trying to say there is just the other eco builders up and around here, whether it's like straw bale sandwich kit frames, or Makar does like warm cell blown in between sheet OSB on both sides, or OSB and Steigo. It's all you could be a labourer or a joiner, and you can pick that up. You can work in that team pretty effectively, pretty quick. Whereas I kind of need someone who's more of a completer finisher and really understands it. And something we haven't mentioned yet is when you're building with logs, not so much in the post and beam setting, but when you're building with logs horizontally stacked, you're building with green timber, and it's going to shrink. So we have to allow for this 6 to 7% shrinkage of the logs. And again, that's really important. Like if somebody cuts the window opening and they haven't allowed for that 6 or 7%, then it's going to come down and it's going to sit on top of the window. Your window is really good and strong. Maybe that'll mean that the logs don't come down and there's a gap there. That's not good. If your window isn't strong enough, well, your window is going to break, or it's going to stop being able to open, or whatever. And obviously, your client's not going to be happy with that. And that's major, work to go. As a snagging issue, that's a big snag that you've got to go and sort. So you need someone that's on it and paying attention. So I guess the bit I overlooked was that I need quite highly skilled staff working with me. And it takes a bit of time to get them trained up. And then I really don't want to lose them. I want to keep a hold of those guys. I want to have a core team eventually, probably 6 people that stay and they want to build log cabins and they'll enjoy it.
And did you build your first home, your competitive eco home, with that price?
We're still on it.
Okay.
It is going over budget. And it's going over budget for a couple of reasons. But it's had a few additions, so it's now quite tricky. So it started off with a mezzanine floor, which was a sleeping platform. And that was just so it was a one bed house with a mezzanine that's overflow capacity should somebody be coming to stay. And then we convinced the client that actually if they made it a little bit higher, it would make a really nice upstairs. So we did that, and then they could have an office space. And then having done that and looking at where it's sitting, I got a balcony up there as well. And then having got the balcony up there, the floor, the mezzanine got increased in size a little bit. And there's all these little like creeps.
Yeah.
They're really good ideas. If you can afford to do them, I mean, the building now is going to be a big improvement on what it was, but it actually costs more. So it's a little bit trickier to know how much or over budget are we, because it's over on its original estimate, or how much is actually, with the balcony, a lot longer than you thought. And then there's a whole retrofitting of things that it's not retrofitting, but it's like if we'd known right from the get-go there was going to be a balcony, then the course of logs below where the balcony was would be slightly larger, and they would extend it out, and then structurally, just picked it up, and it'd been nice and easy. Whereas that wasn't the case. Then it's like, how are we going to get that in and support it, given that actually that's the size of log we've got? There's a few wee things like that makes it a little bit trickier. But yeah, I mean, basically, it's going over is what's happened.
But you don't have any. Doesn't sound like you have any competitors, really.
Well,
not doing what you do, because you're doing this really bespoke work. And you said there's 2 other companies, but not in. Where are you? Inverness, did you say?
Yeah, Highland Scotland. So Inverness. We're actually out at Glenafric, so it's like 30 minutes from Inverness. And yes, and certainly that's probably what I put on the funding application, and that was what I believed at that time. But the more time goes on, there's log cabins going up around here. In fact, close to where we stay, there's a place called Eagle Brae, which is like luxury accommodation, holiday accommodation. They've got log cabins, but their log cabins have come from Canada, Pioneer Log Homes. So my competition isn't just in the UK. My competition's actually North America or across Europe, because if there's people here willing to buy a log cabin, and they're looking around the UK and they're going, no, that standard isn't good enough for what I want. And I'm looking at those ones and I'm going, we can build that. I know we can. I just need to get big enough, get my name out there, I guess, prove it. Because as a client, if you're going to a company and you've got this, I don't know, there's a lad up in Scotland who's saying he can do it, but how many has he built? Not that many. How many has Pioneer built? Well, it's like 3 generations of building high-end log homes. Yeah, it might cost a bit more, but that's a safer bet. So I need to keep finding the clients that are willing to go, no, I'd like to build locally. I like the idea of building a low-carbon log home in the Highlands of Scotland with Scotch-grown timber. And this...
Exactly. I don't feel that you have... Personally, I don't feel that you have any competitors because it's not a like for like thing. It's not a like for like cabin. It's not.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So somebody, Scottish person building homegrown timber, unless you could say to me, oh yeah, there are 4 or 5 companies that are bigger than me. They've got a team of 10 each company, and that's what they're doing exactly the same thing. Then you have competitors. But it sounds to me like you don't have a competitor.
Yeah. Okay. No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think that's incredibly exciting what you've got going on there.
Well, and so do I. If I can, yeah, it could be. It's funny because, like any business owner, I'm sure when they're starting off, you end up wearing all the hats, and times can be a bit overwhelming. And
absolutely
trying to navigate that space, and especially when it starts, because you're passionate or you're good at doing something, which is that you keep wanting to do, which goes back to that whole artisan thing that you're saying. You're drawn back to being on the tools because that's what you really enjoy doing. You want to make a really good job, but at the same time, you have to go to the office and you need to get yourself out there and advertise, and you need to speak to the next client and the next project, and you need to sort out the payroll and the insurance and all the stuff that's really boring. And at some point, you hope that you've got a company and your skills are allowing you to employ somebody else that's good at that stuff and they can help you out. But until then, we're doing everything.
Yeah, I know. It's got such a fine balance, isn't it? Because you do have to be everywhere. There's no point in you just locking yourself away in your lovely building log cabins and never poking your head out, because your business is not going to grow. People want to see you, speak to you, see you on things like this podcast, that type of thing, to know that you exist. And, oh, that's interesting. So it's difficult, but then like you say, you've got to wear so many hats. It's so difficult to know which hat to wear at what time, and how long to wear that hat as well.
And where to invest. So, like, do you pay and do a wee online course on how to do your bookkeeping? Or is it actually better to get someone in just to do your bookkeeping for you? And how do you know if you've got a good accountant or not? Because you've got no idea of accounting. You've got an accountant and you're hoping they're doing their job, but you've got no idea.
No.
And that happens for every bit of that business thing. And again, really what you want to do is pay for a bit more training on the tools. Like, can we not go and do a month's work out in Canada with Pioneer Log Homes, find out how they're doing it, and see where we can improve, see if we can do a skill shares thing. All that stuff is where I would like to spend the money. But all of that is pointless if you haven't got, the next thing coming in.
Have you ever thought of a mentor, business mentor?
Yeah, I have. And it's something actually that I was offered. And at the time that I was offered it, it was, I don't know, it just felt like it was another thing. And I guess probably I was close to breaking. And that was probably the time when I should have or could have needed the business mentor more than any. Having said that, I've got, like both parents are super supportive. And various other friends who, like, whether they're architects or structural engineers or running their own business. So it's not a business mentor for me, but there is definitely a huge network of support that's helping. It's not me, like it's not just me. I'm really fortunate. I've got a huge pool of people that keep advising and giving and like pushing, nudging, helping you through that stuff.
Yeah. The reason I ask is that if I'd had my time again, it's what I would be doing. Is where I feel that I went wrong, because I've learned the hard way, and I've worn so many hats, and it's taken me 30 years now to get to where I've got to. Now, you could say on one aspect, well, great, you've been doing it for 30 years, so therefore you're tried and tested, and you've got battle scars, so you're going to be better in your business going forward. But then the other side to that is that I could have probably been here 10 years ago. So it's interesting because I've had a couple of people on this show, and they had business mentors, and it made a massive difference to their progression. And it's just something that I didn't even consider. I didn't even realize there was such a thing as a business mentor, I didn't even realize. So I struggled along on my own without any business acumen training whatsoever, trying to learn all aspects of business. And and you're obviously strong in some areas and weak in others. And it's really interesting listening to you speak about that, because it is difficult, isn't it, to try. You do have to know a bit of everything. But there is a point, and you seem to be at that point now, where you've then got to decide, okay, what is the most important thing for this business now? And there's got to be delegation, and there's got to be people brought in that are trusted, like accountants and other people like that, to make sure the business can grow. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. I'll think about it again for sure.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, but it's fascinating. I love doing these because it's almost a bit like therapy, because you're meeting somebody else that has been through the same thing or is going through the same thing that you've been through. It's good. You can speak a different language. Could we? It's really. Well, just before we go on to the next topic, I think you've really got something here. I think it's really exciting, and it could be such a bespoke niche product that people ultimately will be queuing up for. On your first come, first served, and do you qualify to have this incredible building done by us, or do you not? It's that type of product that will allow you, and budget-wise, allow you to really put your heart and soul and your artistic talent into those buildings that will make them incredible. I think interesting you say that the Canadian log company, they're a higher price point at the moment, are they, than you? Yeah. Okay. So that's got to turn around for us. That's going to turn around.
Yeah, no, exactly. But then you've got to ship it from Canada, right? So, I mean,
exactly. But that's not the end user's problem, is it? I mean, that's just that's it. So, I'm really genuinely fascinated about this and excited for your future with this. I think it's brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. So getting on to my next topic, and it's something you wanted to talk about, is this the SAPs or SAPs energy ratings and the whole life carbon aspect. And can you just explain a little bit to our viewers what that is?
Yeah, definitely. And what do people say? Disclaimer: I'm not trained in doing SAP stuff, so this is my understanding of SAP's calcs, and hopefully for a lot of the listeners or whatever, this will make sense. But
yeah, what does it stand for to start with? What is S?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Let's Google that one.
Yeah, we need to Google that one. I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't think that was important. But what it is it's like an energy rating or requirement for a house going forward. So you can build a new house, and there's targets to reduce the carbon footprint of the country. One of those, or one of the big energy consumers, I guess, is our homes and heating, or just even the electric that we use in them. And if we're going to be building new houses, we want to try and get the amount of energy needed to keep that house, that home operating. We want to get that as low as possible. So we've got the SAPs calc that kind of measures the requirement of energy that that house might need. And that's a few things in there. So there's like the heating source, as well, and how much carbon is associated with that heating source. So, I think certain heating methods are now out, like wood stoves was out for a bit, but might now be back in actually. There's a bit of pushback from that one, but like oil boilers, things like that. And then you're getting incentives for air source or ground source or solar panels. And these are all seen as good heating or like renewable energy into the building. So,
and Scotland specific. This is
Scotland. It could be Scotland specific. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be what the S stands for. Is it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, could be. We need to Google it though. You're right. Anyway, so in that space, insulation is really important. Insulation and air tightness, probably the two most important things to get right, or to tweak to reduce the amount of energy that the building requires to be heated. The way that timber doesn't score that highly in terms of an installation compared to Kingspan, polystyrene, or like expanded polyurethane foams. But, so that means that when I'm trying to get a log building through, or if you were doing, so the next thing, is timber doesn't score very highly, but natural fibers don't score nearly as highly as foams. So whether that's printed newspaper, warm cell, or sheep's wool, or hemp, or straw bale, or any of these natural fibers, they're all sitting kind of around the same sort of value, which I should know off the top of my head, but it's not, the bottom line is it's not nearly as good as polyurethane, expanded foams, or polystyrene, right? That means that the SAPs calcs at the moment are demanding an awful lot of insulation.
I see.
Enough to attain if you're using Kingspan or polystyrene. But if you want to use straw bale or warm cell, your wall thickness has to get a lot deeper. When it gets deeper, that gives you other problems, like you can no longer get standard studs that are, because a 200 deep stud isn't big enough. Maybe you need a 345 mil stud. And then you're going, well, actually, maybe we want some sort of like lattice truss type stud arrangement rather than standard sawn rectangular cross section. And then if you're putting on, I don't know, like wood fiber boards, well, that wood fiber has to start increasing. And then the screw that you're using to fix that on has to start increasing. And it all starts to get more and more expensive and more complicated and just trickier to meet those standards. And that's in the straw bale, warm cell, hemp, whatever space. But in the log cabin space, I really want to keep that aesthetic of the round logs, because I think it's good for your soul. Like, there's something and lots of other people, but not necessarily everybody, there's something nice about having a curved wall or some natural forms in your building, and not having that square white, what I think is.
Well, exactly. We're animals. We thrive in nature.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple, isn't it? And the closer we can be in nature, the happier we are, in my opinion.
Right, exactly. And there is quite a few studies now on this, whether it's like de-stressing time in nature, or disruptive classrooms, and then even things as simple as like painting the walls green, or having wood paneling, and calming the whole classroom environment.
I completely get that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you feel it, right? You notice it, and I don't want to lose that. So one way would be that you just take your log cabin and you go, well, let's, you either have your logs on the inside or the outside. You just box up and spray foam the outside, and it's like, I don't want to do that, because, well, one, like your air quality is another aspect that's really important to us. So the whole timber is breathing, it's gonna absorb, and whatever the other word is where it puts it back out, but like regulates humidity levels. Got that natural calming shape and all sorts. And it's warm to the touch, so it's got thermal mass like a stone building would, but it does heat up a lot quicker. But it's not like my granny, actually, she had a relatively new built house, and it's lovely, and it sits at 20 degrees, and it does have a wood stove in it, which you don't need, but you would like, because you like that kind of aesthetic, or you want that point heat source. Problem with it is, as soon as you open the door, all the heat's out of the building, because there's no thermal mass in there whatsoever. And the log cabin that I stay in, that I built when I was 14, the one that's drafty, the one that's like pretty shoddy by building standards, it's great. I have a fire on in there, and it gets all nice and cozy. And then the next day, it's still cozy, because there is a lot of thermal mass that absorbs that heat and radiates it back out into the room slowly over time. But yet, it's not like a stone building where you could have that fire. There's just so much thermal mass that it actually, you could have the fire on or the heating on for a good few days to get that building to heat up. Absolutely.
Okay.
It will radiate heat back into the room for a good few days longer, because there's so much thermal mass there, especially if your stone building was insulated on the outside and all that thermal mass was heated up and insulated from outside. But timber performs pretty well in that sort of space of helping to regulate fluctuations in temperature. And I feel like I've lost what the question was and gone off on a tangent again. But I'm trying to. It was to do with SAPs, calcs, and in that space. So where I'm getting to is, I don't want to lose. I don't want to clad over everywhere my log walls, because I think that they bring a lot of things that are really good, and there's got to be an alternative.
Agreed.
The alternative is that I choose. So in the SAPs calcs, there's like a minimum insulation value that you have to achieve for your floor, walls, and roof. So lots of buildings have different wall types, and that's going to combine to an average wall insulation value. And that's where I'm working in or going at the minute. So behind my kitchen counters, fine, we can add in a bit of insulation in there, because that doesn't detract from that aesthetic, that space. It still very much feels and looks like a log cabin, but I've managed to get a bit of extra insulation in there, and that's great. Like, maybe, so in this build that we're currently doing, the north wall just faces into our bank. It's got some trees. You don't see that side as you approach the building. You won't really be around there that often. The overhang on that side is far reduced. It's got like a 600-700 mil overhang rather than 2 meters or 3 meters on the south side, but there's a veranda. But that means that, like, if you were going to clad a wall, that was the one to clad. So that's what we did. So we've clad that on the exterior. We've added in warm cell insulation. It does give us really deep windowsills, but then we're seeing that as a good thing. It's almost like having a worktop there, like front of your utility room, you've got this big, massive light shelf that you can put stuff and use. But again, if you didn't want that deep windowsills, then you are struggling if you want to use natural fibre insulation.
Yeah.
And I guess why I'm talking about that is because if I'd gone for Kingspan on the outside of the logs, it would have been a lot less. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stay away from the expanded polyurethane foams and the off-gassing, and I wanted to keep it natural, and I wanted to keep it as low carbon as I could. So I've added in warm cell, which did mean that my studs had to be a bit deeper. And then we've got a styco board on the outside of that, and it gives us a really good, what's it called? Like envelope. Just the layer system, so the moisture will want to move from the inside to the outside. It's going to be pulled that way. It's always going to dry out. It's a breathing wall construction. There's a ventilation space between the cladding and the styco board. It just feels good. And I guess where all this gets to, all these frustrations get me to, is that why are we so focused on the energy requirement of the building going forward? Why is it not being looked at in terms of a total life cycle of that building?
Right. That's exactly my point that I was going to ask you. I got two big points about this, and that's for me is that one, shouldn't it be offset? Okay. It should be offset. So therefore, what impact does the polyurethane foam cause to our climate? And it's a huge impact. Okay, so what I would be doing is I'd say, okay, great, we'll have your argument is great. We want to see the logs. That's really important because that's important for our mental state. Without a doubt, I'm positive of that. Now, what they're saying is that it doesn't have. You're saying thermal mass. It has more thermal mass than a modern building. It has more retention than a modern building. Okay, so therefore, are they considering that as well? And then thinking, okay, hold on a minute. Well, we're going to make an allowance then for log cabins because one, we're not using all this horrible material that is so bad for the planet and our carbon footprint. But two, when you open the door to the log cabin and you shut it, it's going to retain a lot of that heat. So ultimately, it's not going to need as much heating.
Right. So that there is my gut feel, but until I've got evidence to back it, like you've built a dose of log homes and you're able to see what their daily temperatures are that they're setting. You kind of need that information to prove it. But I would like to see, what's it called? I'm not saying that we have to change the SAPs process or the way that we're currently evaluating buildings, but just if there was a contingency for an alternative route so that these, whether it is straw bale homes that you're building or timber frame with warm cell, but if you're trying to get an eco-friendly, a low carbon building, give us a little bit of a break in that space. If we can demonstrate that we've designed the building for 100 years and not 20 years, and the aspects of that building, like if you're building a log cabin, it is designed to last, right? You could pick it up and move it if you wanted to, but it's that kind of like cherished home building that wants to be repaired and looked after. It's not a case of, that's done. It's 40 years, we've patched it through, but now we're going to knock it down and we're going to build something else. You're just not going to do that.
No.
There's too much effort and care has gone into it, and they work. They're really nice.
Yeah, and what they've done is literally classic, isn't it? They've just gone one size fits all. This is what it is. There are no exceptions. These are the rules, and they haven't considered just those very simple points that you and I have just discussed. I mean, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? And I think you've got a really good case. You can prove all of the the damage of polyurethane and the carbon. You can get that data very, very easily. The data that you're saying, which we don't quite have, is the thermal retention, thermal properties. We have the longevity of a log cabin. Everybody knows we've had them for hundreds of years, so we know how long they last. So that's a tick. But it's that scientific study of the retention, because I would pretty much bet that when that study comes out, it's going to show that just a bog standard log cabin is going to be far more efficient than a cabin having extra insulation and polyurethane and wide and taken away from what it actually naturally is. I would pretty much go, or it might be equal. It might be equal. Who knows?
Yeah, so it'd be really nice to get some evidence in that space, but it would also be nice to just, and maybe your podcast is a brilliant platform for that. But there's lots of heritage, what would you call them, like building construction styles or eco builders. Oh, I know that eco is like overused, but like there's people out there that are trying to get low carbon buildings, and it would be a case of getting those folks together and just saying, look, guys, we need to put a bit of pressure on Scottish government here, and just like, we want an alternative measure here. Let's start doing the carbon life cycle assessments of our buildings and comparing those to what's being built, and just go, guys, this isn't fair. Because if we're serious, if the whole reason behind this is about global warming and the carbon footprint, it does not make sense to use super high carbon materials just so that tomorrow you don't use quite so much carbon to heat that house. It has to be done over a 100-year period, or a life cycle of the building. It doesn't have to be done over 100 years, but you have to look at it in the whole. You can't just say, well, this is fantastic. There's very little energy required to heat this space, if that space is made from nothing but like polystyrene, rubber, glues, plastics, because its carbon footprint is huge. You're never.
It has to be factored in.
Yeah, absolutely, it does, and that I find really frustrating at the moment. But I would love to get some like-minded people together and just see if we could actually change that, or at least trying to change that. And not just for the log build. I mean, obviously, like the critics would say, well, I'm only interested in that because of log buildings, and it would make life easier for me. And that's undoubtedly true. Yeah, of course it would. But it would also for any of the other low carbon natural insulation, straw bale, whatever it is, hempcrete, all those guys would all be benefiting. And I think that society in the long run would also be benefiting, because it's a bit odd what we're doing at the minute, in my view. Like, it just doesn't make sense to look at the carbon footprint of the building going forward only. You have to look at how much carbon you're spending today when you're building that.
Yeah. And we have to be looking at these solutions. I mean, we have to be going back to, how we built houses 500 years ago, 300 years ago. We just have to. Everything came from the earth, literally everything. So, and using the most natural products that we had available to us. And the only, one thing they could say is that, well, okay, we don't like you burning logs in your house and in an open fire. That's one. But there are still very efficient ways now of burning wood with pellets and that type of thing that's less harmful. So,
and you can still heat these places with your air source or your ground source. That's not
exactly
technology. I'm not trying to dispute that. Say that we have to go back to fires. No, it's just that the building, the rest of the building, does it have to be, I guess it comes into everything, like the windows. Surely, if you go for plastic UPVC windows, there's a higher carbon footprint than timber frame windows. But maybe there's not. And the problem is that at the moment, it is just a gut feel for me. So it's not going to gain any traction. I need to have
You need to have the evidence.
You need to have the evidence, yeah. It's not.
Yeah.
No one at the policy making level is going to take you serious if you can't evidence it, back it up. Otherwise, you're just going to be like, well, there he is,
Yeah.
in the woods again, chatting on about his log cabins. It's not going to work.
No, I don't think it would take much, though, Ross, to get this in the lap of somebody who's going to listen, because we have to start listening, and it's a very, very hot topic. So I think you're definitely onto something here, and this is how it starts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just get the right person to listen, and I think it's really valid what you're saying. And it completely makes sense, and it's just very, very typical that we just have this one size fits all, and the computer says no, and then they shut the case, and that's it. These are the rules.
Yeah,
but they haven't got the evidence there to put the rules in place in the first in the first instance. So
it's funny too, because you then end up in a situation where people are trying to find the ways around. You've got passionate folks out there that want to stay in a log cabin or want to stay in a straw bale house or whatever it is. So they start looking at other ways that they can get their house through. Like, it's a temporary structure, it's portable, it's a caravan, and therefore it falls under different legislation. And you're like, that's daft. What are we doing? Like
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. But we need to get a conversation going. We need to get some evidence in there, and we need to start pushing for whatever we're calling that, a contingency or an alternative way of assessing the carbon footprint of a building.
Yeah, I'm loving it. Right, we need to do something about this. Definitely. I'm just thinking that we haven't even sort of touched. We're sort of coming towards the end of this now, but I've got to get you back to actually talk about the log cabin building process and everything that goes on, because I think that we could just talk about that for just a whole podcast, literally, just because I'm fascinated. As I said to you before we went live, I've just returned from Sweden and to do some presentations, and I went to Skansen, which is their open air museum, and seeing log cabins from 1350 and 1400. Just phenomenal. And the quality of craftsmanship, and they're still standing, these log cabins, from back then, and you could live in them. So it would be really good I'd love to do that when you get a bit of time, if we can get you back to talk about that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I thought we were going to talk about, and then I managed to ramble on about everything but log building. So
no, but I think what we've discussed is really, really important. And when I looked at our list at the start, there is so much to talk about, and I love hearing people's backgrounds and their business. I love that part of it. That's probably my own sort of interest, but I'm sure my audience like that as well. And then this is a really, really important matter. So we just couldn't possibly fit it into. I think it would be crazy to cram it into one podcast. So I think if we could get you back just to be talking about log cabins and how they're built, because I've got so many questions to ask you. That would be absolutely great. Definitely. No, it's good. So where could people find out about you? You on Instagram or Facebook? You have a website?
Website's probably the best place. We do have Instagram, and it goes through fluctuations of me bothering to post and then just losing heart with it again.
That's another hat you're wearing.
Yeah, not good at that one. Not good at that one at all. just slightly too old for that generation, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, we've got Instagram and we try and update on there, but we also got a website. So bedrockbuildings.co.uk. Find us there.
Yeah.
Drop an email. And yeah, if you're interested in helping to shift this this carbon thing, then let's get talking, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody out there listening to this, then, please do get in touch with us and see if we can get this, moving, as you say. Ross, thank you so much. It's been really fascinating talking to you. And I'm intrigued to see where the whole energy, what's it called, the SAPs is going to go, because I think that definitely has legs, and somebody hasn't worked that one out yet. And that I think we can really do something with this, and hopefully, hopefully we'll be able to get the ball rolling. So anybody else is listening out there, then join in the conversation. But it's been a pleasure, and definitely come back and let's speak about the log cabins and how they're built, and and until next time, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much, and thanks for your time.
Vince, thank you very much. It's been really good fun. Enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Talk. Okay, good stuff. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.